Two criminals attacked a banker in his office. The janitor did the unexpected. She dropped her mop, stepped between them and the man in the suit, and became someone else entirely. She didn't know that 5 minutes of violence would unravel 3 years of carefully constructed invisibility and force her to choose between the life she'd escaped and the man who'd never truly seen her. Two broken survivors, one impossible choice, and a truth that would shatter everything they'd built to protect themselves. Before we dive into this story of hidden identities and the courage to step back into the fire, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if you believe that some people are warriors no matter what uniform they wear, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's see what happens when someone who spent years trying to disappear is forced back into the light. Earlier that evening, Marcus Hartwell had been alone in his corner office on the 42nd floor, reviewing acquisition documents that would reshape his financial empire. Just another Thursday night for a man who lived in spreadsheets and strategy. He barely noticed when the cleaning crew arrived. Never noticed Elena, the quiet woman who'd been emptying his trash for 6 months. But then the elevator doors opened with a mechanical whisper, and two men stepped into the executive suite. Not security, not colleague. Their faces were covered. Their movements were calculated. Their guns were already drawn. Marcus had 3 seconds to process what was happening before they were inside his office. Before the taller one grabbed him by his silk tie, before everything he'd built, the reputation, the empire, the carefully controlled world, began to crack apart. And Elena, 30 feet away in the conference room, heard the crash of his desk lamp hitting marble, heard his sharp intake of breath, heard the cold voice say, "You've been stealing from the wrong people, Hartwell." Her hands were still wet from wringing out the mop. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, the same ribs that had been broken in Fallujah, the same body that had learned 100 ways to neutralize a threat. She had 3 choices: run to the elevator, hide in the supply closet, or walk through that door. She chose the door. And when Marcus Hartwell looked up from where he knelt with a gun to his temple, he saw his janitor for the first time. Really saw her. The way she moved, the way her eyes assessed angles and distances, the way she became something else entirely. Someone who'd been a ghost in his building for half a year, cleaning around him while he never once looked up. He was about to learn that Elena Reyes wasn't just a janitor. She was a decorated combat veteran who'd walked away from a career that had taken everything from her. And she was about to make the worst mistake of her carefully invisible life. She was about to save his. Elena Reyes had perfected the art of being invisible. For 3 years, she had moved through the gleaming corridors of the Hartwell Financial Group building like a shadow, always present, never noticed, always working, never acknowledged. She arrived at 9 p.m. when the executives were gone, cleaned until 5 a.m. when they returned, and disappeared before anyone could remember her face. Tonight was no different. Floor 42, Executive Suite, the heart of Marcus Hartwell's empire. She pushed her cart down the hallway, the wheels squeaking softly against polished marble. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, secured with 3 bobby pins she could use as lockpicks if needed. Old habits. Her blue eyes stayed focused on the floor, avoiding the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a dizzying view of the city below. Heights didn't bother her. Being seen did. The conference room first. She moved methodically, emptying trash bins, wiping down the long mahogany table where men in $1,000 suits made decisions that moved markets. She wore earbuds, no music playing, just a barrier against interaction, and kept her movements efficient, practiced, invisible. Through the glass walls, she could see Marcus Hartwell in his corner office. Still there, always there. She'd learned his patterns over 6 months. He worked late every Thursday, reviewing documents until well past midnight. He drank his coffee black. He never ate dinner at his desk, just worked through it. And he never, not once, looked at her when she cleaned his office. She was furniture to him, a function, not a person. Elena preferred it that way. She moved to the next office, her hands working automatically while her mind stayed carefully blank. Don't think about before. Don't think about the desert. Don't think about the faces of people who aren't here anymore. Just clean, just move, just stay invisible. The elevator chimed. Elena's body registered it before her mind did. Wrong time. Wrong sound. The executive elevator was keycard access only, and everyone had gone home hours ago except Hartwell. Her hands stilled on the desk she was wiping. Every muscle in her body went taut, waiting. The elevator doors opened with a whisper of expensive machinery. Two men stepped out. Elena's training assessed them in 3 seconds. 6'2" and 6'4". Athletic builds under dark clothing. Tactical boots, not dress shoes. Hands in pockets, wrong posture for casual visit. Faces covered with black masks. Moving with purpose toward Hartwell's office. Her heart rate spiked. Her breathing stayed controlled. Not security, not colleagues, not safe. She should run. That was the smart choice, the invisible choice. The choice that kept her alive and anonymous and far away from anything that looked like combat. But her feet didn't move. Through the glass walls, she watched them enter Hartwell's office. Watched the taller one pull a gun. Watched Marcus Hartwell look up from his documents, confusion crossing his face before it hardened into something else. Fear, maybe. Or acceptance. The crash of the desk lamp hitting the floor shattered the silence. Elena's hands were shaking, not from fear, from memory. From muscle memory that lived deeper than conscious thought, in the place where Sergeant Reyes still existed, where the warrior she'd tried to bury kept clawing toward the surface. She heard Hartwell's sharp intake of breath, heard the cold voice. "You've been stealing from the wrong people, Hartwell. Time to pay what you owe." 3 choices. Run to the elevator, hide in the supply closet, walk through that door. Elena's body chose before her mind could stop it. She moved, silent. Smooth, the way she'd moved through compounds in Fallujah, through hostile territory where one wrong step meant death. Her earbuds came out. Her cart stayed behind. Everything she'd used to make herself small, everything she'd used to disappear, she shed it like dead skin. By the time she reached the doorway, she wasn't Elena the janitor anymore. She was someone else entirely. The shorter man had Marcus on his knees, gun pressed to his temple. The taller one was pulling zip ties from his pocket, moving around the desk. Neither was watching the door. Tactical mistake. Always watch the exits. Elena assessed 8 feet to the taller target, 12 to the armed one. Taller was closer but less immediate threat. Armed one had finger on trigger, pressure point visible even from here. Any sudden move and Hartwell dies. She had one chance. She took it. Elena moved like water, fast and fluid, closing the 8 feet in less than 2 seconds. Her left hand caught the taller man's wrist, torquing it at an angle that made his fingers release the zip ties reflexively. Her right elbow drove into his solar plexus, exactly where the vest wouldn't protect him, driving the air from his lungs. He tried to turn. She was already moving. Her foot swept his knee, hyperextending it with a crack that echoed off marble walls. He went down hard. The armed man spun, gun swinging toward her. Marcus shouted something. She didn't hear it. Time slowed the way it always did in combat. The way it had in the desert when everything was bullets and sand and the screaming of people she couldn't save. The gun was coming up. She was already inside his reach. Elena's hand shot out, catching his wrist and pushing it skyward just as he fired. The shot went wild, shattering the window behind Hartwell's desk. Safety glass spiderwebbed but held. She drove her knee into his groin. Not tactical but effective. He doubled over. She caught the gun hand, twisted, felt bones grind in his wrist. The weapon clattered to the floor. He was bigger than her, stronger, but size didn't matter when you knew exactly where to strike. Elbow to the temple, palm heel to the nose, knee to the ribs where the vest had ridden up. He fought back, caught her across the jaw with a wild swing that split her lip. The pain was distant, irrelevant. Behind her, she heard the taller man getting up, heard the scrape of his boot on marble. Elena grabbed the closest thing available, Hartwell's desk chair, leather and chrome, and swung it in a wide arc. It caught the tall man across the chest, sent him crashing back into the shattered window. The armed man lunged for the gun. Elena was faster. She kicked it across the room, heard it skitter under the bookshelf. Then she turned back to him, and something in her face must have changed, must have shown him exactly what she was, because he stopped. "Stay down," she said. Her voice was different. Command voice, sergeant voice. Or I put you down. He didn't stay down. He came at her with a knife she hadn't seen him pull, blade flashing in the fluorescent light. Combat knife, serrated edge, designed to kill. Old instincts took over. Elena sidestepped, caught his knife hand, and used his own momentum to drive him forward into the desk. She heard his nose break against the mahogany edge, heard him gasp, felt his weight go slack as shock set in. The taller man was trying to get up again, clutching his ribs. Elena grabbed the mop she'd abandoned in the hallway. She'd been cleaning with it less than 2 minutes ago, before she was someone who knew how to break bones, and brought the handle down across the back of his knees. He collapsed, then silent, heavy breathing. Hers, theirs. Marcus Hartwell's, ragged and shocked from where he knelt behind his desk. Elena stood in the center of the office, chest heaving, blood on her lip, the torn fabric of her janitor uniform exposing a scar on her lower ribs, an old scar, a bullet scar, and Marcus Hartwell stared at her, really stared, for the first time in 6 months. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He couldn't finish the sentence. Elena's hands started to shake. Adrenaline dump, combat aftermath. The thing that always came after, when your body realized it was supposed to be dead but wasn't. She dropped the mop handle. It clattered against the floor, too loud in the sudden quiet. I called 911, she said. Her voice was thin, distant, like it belonged to someone else. They're coming. Marcus got to his feet slowly, like a man coming out of a dream, or a nightmare. His silk tie was askew. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled, but his eyes were sharp, analytical, taking in details, the way she stood, the way she'd moved, the way she'd neutralized 2 armed men in less than 60 seconds. Who are you? He asked. Elena wanted to be invisible again. Wanted to rewind 2 minutes, walk away, let whatever was going to happen happen without her. Wanted to be anyone except who she'd just revealed herself to be. The janitor, she said quietly. I'm just the janitor. But they both knew that was a lie. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Red and blue lights began to flash against the shattered window, painting the office in alternating colors of emergency. Marcus took a step toward her. Elena took a step back. Don't, she whispered. Her hands were shaking harder now. Her jaw where the man had hit her was starting to throb. Old pain was mixing with new, scars that had never really healed suddenly aching like fresh wounds. You saved my life, Marcus said. There was something in his voice, wonder, maybe, or confusion. I didn't even know your name. Elena, she said, because what did it matter now? Invisibility was gone. 3 years of careful anonymity, shattered. Elena Reyes. The elevator chimed again. This time it was police, flooding onto the 42nd floor with weapons drawn, radios crackling, voices shouting commands. An officer moved toward Elena. She raised her hands automatically, slowly, palms out, showing she was unarmed, showing she wasn't a threat, even though they'd just watched her be exactly that. Marcus stepped between them. She's not with them, he said sharply. She's the one who called you. She's the one who... He gestured at the 2 men on his office floor, one unconscious, one groaning. She stopped them. The officer looked at Elena, looked at her janitor uniform, looked at the blood on her lip, and the way she held herself, coiled, ready, despite the trembling hands. Looked at the 2 trained criminals she'd put down. Ma'am, the officer said carefully, I'm going to need you to come with me. We have questions. Elena nodded. She'd known this would come. The moment she'd stepped through that door, she'd known. Everything she'd built, the quiet life, the invisible existence, the careful distance from anything that looked like violence, it was gone. And Marcus Hartwell was staring at her like he'd never seen her before, because he hadn't, until now. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and fluorescent exhaustion. Elena sat in an interview room, hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup she hadn't touched. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. She stared at the 2-way mirror, knowing someone was watching, knowing that her carefully constructed anonymity was being stripped away with every question, every background check, every keystroke that pulled up a file she'd hoped would stay buried. Detective Sarah Chen sat across from her. Mid-40s, Sharp eyes, posture that suggested military background. She'd been patient so far. Too patient. Let's go through it one more time, Detective Chen said gently. You heard the disturbance and went toward it, not away from it, toward two armed men. Elena didn't answer. Most people run, Ms. Reyes. You didn't. I didn't think, Elena said quietly. It was the truth. Thinking would have stopped her. Thinking would have kept her invisible. Detective Chen opened a file folder. Elena's stomach dropped. Elena Maria Reyes, Army Rangers, 2 tours in Iraq, Silver Star for Valor, honorable discharge 3 years ago. Chen looked up. You left out the part where you're a decorated combat veteran when you applied to be a janitor. It wasn't relevant. Wasn't relevant. Chen's eyebrow raised. You have training that most private security firms would pay 6 figures for, and you chose to mop floors for minimum wage. Elena's jaw tightened. I chose to be left alone. The door opened. Marcus Hartwell walked in, still in his rumpled suit, tie finally removed. His presence filled the small room instantly. Authority, money, power. Things that usually made Elena want to disappear. Detective Chen stood. Mr. Hartwell, you can't be in here during— She saved my life, Marcus said, his voice quiet but absolute. And I don't even know if anyone's thanked her yet. Have you thanked her, Detective? Chen's expression softened slightly. Mr. Hartwell, I understand you're grateful, but this is procedure. We need to understand what happened. What happened is that 2 men tried to kill me, and this woman, who I've passed in the hallway for 6 months without ever seeing, put herself between me and a bullet. Marcus moved closer to the table, his dark eyes fixed on Elena. What happened is that I'm alive because of her. Elena couldn't look at him, couldn't handle the intensity of being seen this completely. The men you stopped, Chen continued, pulling out photos. They're professionals, ex-military themselves, hired guns. They weren't there to rob you, Mr. Hartwell. They were there to kill you. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't look surprised. You knew, Elena said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken to him directly. You knew someone wanted you dead. I suspected. Marcus pulled out a chair, sat down without asking permission. I've been investigating financial irregularities in several investment accounts. Large-scale money laundering, the kind that gets people killed when you threaten to expose it. And you didn't hire security, Elena said. There was something sharp in her voice, anger maybe, at his recklessness, at the fact that he'd put himself in danger, at the fact that she'd had to break cover because he'd been too stubborn or too proud or too something to protect himself. I did hire security. Marcus gestured toward the hallway. They're the ones who let those men pass the lobby. I'm reassessing my contractors. Detective Chen cleared her throat. Ms. Reyes, you're free to go. We'll need you available for follow-up questions, but you're not being charged with anything. Self-defense and defense of others. She hesitated. And for what it's worth, you probably saved more than 1 life tonight. If they'd gotten to Mr. Hartwell, there would have been other targets. Witnesses, security footage. They came prepared to leave no loose ends. Elena's hands tightened on the cold cup. Loose ends. That's what she would have been. Just another body. She stood, movements careful, controlled. Every muscle in her body ached. The adrenaline had burned through her system, leaving behind the familiar exhaustion of aftermath, of survival. Wait, Marcus said as she moved toward the door. Let me give you a ride home. I'll take a cab. It's 3 a.m. I'll be fine. Elena. He said her name like he was testing it, like he was trying to memorize it. Please. She turned to look at him. Really look at him. In the harsh fluorescent light, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the fear he'd been hiding under the composed exterior. He'd knelt with a gun to his head tonight. He'd thought he was going to die, and now he was looking at her like she was something miraculous, something impossible. She hated that look. I'm not a hero, Mr. Hartwell, she said quietly. I'm just someone who reacted. Don't make it more than it is. You put yourself between me and 2 armed professionals. That's the definition of— I'm not a hero, she repeated, harder this time. Heroes save people. I'm just someone who's good at violence. She walked out before he could respond, but Marcus Hartwell followed her anyway. The next 3 days were a nightmare Elena couldn't wake from. The security footage from the building went viral within the police department. then leaked to the press. Grainy video of a janitor in a stained uniform taking down two armed men with military precision. The media couldn't get enough of it. Guardian janitor, hidden hero, from invisible to invincible. Elena stopped going outside. She sat in her tiny apartment, a studio in a building where half the lights in the hallway didn't work, and watched her anonymity burn to ash on every news channel. Her phone rang constantly. News outlets, private security firms offering contracts, a movie producer. She stopped answering after the first dozen calls. On the fourth day, someone knocked on her door. Elena checked the peephole, saw expensive shoes, a tailored coat, dark hair, Marcus Hartwell. She almost didn't open it, almost let him stand there until he gave up and left. But something in his posture, the way he waited, patient, not demanding, made her turn the deadbolt. She opened the door 6 inches. "How did you find me?" "I'm a banker. I have resources." He held up his hands, showing he wasn't holding anything. "I came to apologize." "For what?" "For making you visible when you clearly didn't want to be." Elena's throat tightened. She hadn't expected that, hadn't expected him to understand. "The security footage," Marcus continued. "I tried to have it sealed, but my lawyers said once it was entered as evidence." He trailed off. "I'm sorry. You saved my life, and I ruined yours." "You didn't ruin it." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "I did that 3 years ago. I just finally caught up to the consequences." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Can I come in? Just for a few minutes? I promise I'll leave if you ask." Every instinct told her to say no, to close the door, to rebuild the walls, to disappear again somewhere new. But she stepped back anyway. Her apartment was sparse. A mattress on the floor, a folding table, 2 chairs, nothing on the walls except water stains from the leak in the ceiling. No photos, no decorations, nothing that suggested a person actually lived here instead of just existing. Marcus looked around, and Elena saw her life through his eyes, saw the poverty, the emptiness, the deliberate lack of anything that might count as roots. "You've been living like this for 3 years?" he asked quietly. "I don't need much." "Elena, you have a silver star. You could work anywhere, do anything. Why? Why do I mop floors and live in a place that barely qualifies as shelter?" She crossed her arms. "Because I don't want to be anyone. I don't want attention. I don't want expectations. I just want to be left alone." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He sat down on one of the folding chairs, carefully, like he was asking permission. 3 years ago, my wife and daughter died in a car accident. I was supposed to be in that car. Had a meeting cancel at the last minute. Catherine took Lily to ballet practice without me. His voice was steady, but there was a crack beneath it, something raw and old and never healed. For the first year, I worked 20-hour days, because if I stopped, I had to think about it. Had to think about the fact that I was alive and they weren't. Elena's hands unclenched slightly. "I became very good at being invisible too," Marcus continued, "just in a different way. I buried myself in work, in numbers, in things that didn't require me to feel anything. And it worked, for a while." He looked up at her. "Until someone forced me to see that I was barely alive. I didn't force anything. You did, though. When you stepped through that door, when you didn't run, when you chose to be visible even though it was the last thing you wanted, you reminded me what it looks like when someone decides to live instead of just survive." Elena sat down in the other chair. Her body ached. Her hands trembled slightly. "I have PTSD, survivor's guilt. I panic when I hear loud noises. I can't sleep more than 4 hours without nightmares. I left the military because I watched my entire unit die in an ambush, and I was the only one who made it out." Her voice cracked. "I'm not your inspiration, Mr. Hartwell. I'm just as broken as you are." "Marcus," he said gently. "My name is Marcus, and I'm not looking for inspiration. I'm looking to say thank you, properly." "You already said it." "No, I thanked you for saving my life. Now I'm thanking you for showing me I had one worth saving." He pulled an envelope from his coat pocket, set it on the table between them. "I know you probably won't accept this, but inside is an offer. Not for gratitude, for partnership." Elena stared at the envelope. "I don't want your money." "It's not money, it's a job offer. Head of personal security for Hartwell Financial Group. Six-figure salary, benefits, and most importantly, privacy. I'll have my legal team bury every piece of that security footage. I'll make you invisible again. As invisible as you want to be. Why would you do that? Because you're right. You're not a hero. Heroes do extraordinary things because they want recognition. You did an extraordinary thing, despite it costing you everything you'd built. That's not heroism. That's sacrifice. Marcus stood, moved toward the door. And because someone needs to protect the stubborn banker who keeps investigating money laundering schemes despite assassination attempts, might as well be someone who's proven she's good at it. He opened the door, paused. Think about it. No pressure. But Elena, he turned back to look at her. You spent 3 years trying to disappear. Maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to be seen by someone who actually sees you. He left. Elena sat in her empty apartment, staring at the envelope, and for the first time in 3 years, she cried. Not from sadness, not from fear, from something else, something that felt dangerously close to hope. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in the guest house on Marcus Hartwell's property. She'd said yes. She still wasn't sure why. The guest house was larger than any place she'd lived since leaving the military. Hardwood floors, a real bed with an actual frame, a kitchen with appliances that worked, windows that overlooked a garden that looked like something from a magazine. It was too much. Marcus had kept his promise. The security footage disappeared from public view. News outlets moved on to other stories. Private security firms stopped calling. Elena faded back into obscurity, but now she was here, in a guest house that cost more per month than she'd made in a year as a janitor, working for a man who looked at her like she mattered. It was terrifying. Everything okay? Marcus appeared in the doorway, 2 mugs of coffee in his hand. He'd learned how she took it. Black, no sugar, strong enough to strip paint. He handed her one. It's too much, Elena said quietly. It's shelter and safety and a fair wage for fair work. I haven't done any work yet. You've been reviewing our security protocols for 3 days. You've already identified 17 vulnerabilities and drafted solutions for all of them. I'd say that's work. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. Plus, you haven't run yet. I consider that a victory. Elena almost smiled. Almost. They fell into a routine. Mornings, Marcus would bring coffee to the guest house. They'd sit on the small porch and go over the day's schedule. Elena would identify risks, plan routes, coordinate with the security team Marcus had rebuilt from the ground up. Afternoons, Elena would accompany him to meetings. She stood in corners, watched exits, assessed threats, became invisible again, but in a different way, not hiding, protecting. Evenings were harder. Marcus worked late. Elena didn't sleep well, so they'd end up in the main house's kitchen around midnight, him reviewing documents, her making tea she wouldn't drink, and they'd talk, not about work, about everything else. Marcus told her about Catherine, about how they'd met in college, about Lily's laugh, about the way his daughter used to draw pictures of their family with everyone holding hands, about the guilt of surviving, about the emptiness of coming home to a house that echoed. Elena told him about Fallujah, about her unit, about holding her best friend while she bled out in the sand, about the nightmares where she couldn't save anyone, about the way loud noises sent her back to the desert, about the shame of being decorated for bravery when she felt like a coward for surviving. They understood each other in a way that required no explanation. 2 months in, Marcus started leaving photos of Catherine and Lily out instead of face down. 3 months in, Elena stopped flinching when doors closed too loudly. It was progress. Slow, painful, fragile progress. And then one night, everything shifted. A thunderstorm rolled over the city, sudden and violent. Lightning cracked across the sky. Thunder boomed like artillery fire. Marcus found Elena in the guest house closet. Knees pulled to her chest, hands over her ears, eyes distant and glazed. He didn't touch her, knew better. Instead, he sat down outside the closet door, back against the wall, and started talking. Lily was afraid of thunderstorms, he said quietly. She'd climb into our bed and bury herself between me and Catherine would tell her stories. Not about princesses or magic, about scientists and explorers, about Marie Curie and Jane Goodall, about women who weren't afraid of anything. Another crack of thunder. Elena flinched but didn't speak. But the truth was, Marcus continued, Lily wasn't afraid of the thunder. She was afraid of being alone when it happened. The storm was just an excuse to not be by herself. His voice was steady, calm, grounding. We all need that sometimes. Permission to not be alone. The storm raged outside. Inside the closet, Elena's breathing slowly evened out. "You don't have to be alone, Elena," Marcus said. "Not anymore. Not unless you want to be." Hours later, when the storm passed and Elena finally came out of the closet, Marcus was still there, waiting, not with pity, with presence. "Thank you," Elena whispered. "You don't have to thank me." "I do, though. You're the first person in 3 years who's seen me break and didn't try to fix me." Marcus looked at her, really looked, the way he had that night in his office when everything changed. "You're not broken, Elena. You're surviving. There's a difference." Something cracked open in her chest, something that had been frozen since Fallujah. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "How to be a person again instead of just a function." "Neither do I." Marcus stood, offered his hand. "Maybe we can figure it out together." Elena stared at his hand for a long moment. Then she took it. His skin was warm. His grip was steady. And for the first time in 3 years, Elena didn't want to disappear. She wanted to stay. The next morning, Elena found a photo frame on the guest house kitchen counter. Inside was the picture of Catherine and Lily that Marcus kept on his office desk. Attached was a note in his precise handwriting. "They would have liked you. I wish they could have known you, but I'm glad I finally do. M." Elena set the photo on the counter where she'd see it every morning. It was the first decoration she'd allowed herself in 3 years. It felt like permission, to be visible, to be seen, to be part of something instead of perpetually apart from it. That evening, Marcus taught her about market analysis. She taught him about tactical awareness. They ate takeout on the porch and watched the sun set over the city. And when their hands brushed, reaching for the same container of lo mein, neither of them pulled away. Small moments, quiet shifts, the careful reconstruction of two people learning how to be alive again. But the world outside their careful bubble was getting ready to shatter it, because the men who'd sent the first attack weren't finished. And this time, they knew exactly who Elena Reyes was. The invitation arrived on a Thursday morning, embossed cream cardstock in a heavy envelope. Marcus turned it over in his hands, frowning. "Gala for the Pacific Northwest Finance Council, next Saturday." He looked up at Elena, who was reviewing security camera feeds on her tablet. "I have to attend. It's where I'm presenting my findings on the money laundering investigation." Elena's jaw tightened. "Public event. Hundreds of people. Multiple entry points. Impossible to secure completely." "I know. They'll try again. At the gala or before it. They know you're going public." She set down the tablet. "We should cancel." "I can't. If I don't present, the investigation stalls. People who've been stealing millions keep operating. More people get hurt." Marcus met her eyes. "I have to do this. Then we make it a fortress. Limited guest list. Metal detectors. Background checks on every server, every musician, every person who touches that venue." Elena's mind was already running scenarios, calculating risks, identifying vulnerabilities. This was what she was good at. Strategic thinking. Threat assessment, keeping people alive, keeping him alive. Over the next week, they worked 18-hour days. Elena coordinated with Detective Chen, who'd become an unexpected ally. Together, they vetted every person on the guest list, every vendor, every employee. Marcus's legal team worked on securing the evidence, preparing presentations, building a case that would topple a network that had been operating for years. But something felt wrong. Elena couldn't identify it, just a feeling. The kind of instinct that had kept her alive in Fallujah, the kind that whispered danger before the shots were fired. 3 days before the gala, everything exploded. Elena was in the guest house, reviewing final security protocols, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Reyes." The voice was male, educated, cold. You've been very difficult to track down. 3 years off the grid. Impressive. Elena's blood went ice cold. Who is this? Someone who wants you to understand something. Marcus Hartwell's investigation doesn't just threaten money. It threatens powerful people. People who don't like being exposed. If you're trying to scare me, I'm trying to save your life. Walk away, Miss Reyes. Disappear the way you did before. We have no interest in you. Only in stopping the banker who's forgotten his place. You tried to kill him once. You failed. We failed because we underestimated his janitor. There was something like amusement in the voice. We won't make that mistake again. Walk away and you live. Stay, and we'll make sure the gala becomes a tragedy that ruins both of you. The line went dead. Elena's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. She should tell Marcus, should loop in Detective Chen, should follow protocol. Instead, she sat in the guest house and thought about Fallujah, about the ambush, about watching people she loved die because someone had gotten intelligence, because someone had known they were coming, because someone had planned their deaths with precision. This was the same, calculated, professional, inevitable, and she was the weak point. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She packed a bag. Not much. She'd never accumulated much. Clothes, toiletries, the photo frame Marcus had given her, the silver star she'd never opened, still in its presentation box. She was good at disappearing. She'd done it once. She could do it again. This time, she'd be saving Marcus instead of herself. At 4 a.m., she wrote a note. Simple. Direct. Marcus, I can't be the reason you die. They'll stop targeting you if I'm gone. Thank you for seeing me. For those months where I got to be a person again. I'm sorry. Elena. She left it on the kitchen counter of the main house, weighed down by her security badge and the keys to the guest house. Then she walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. She made it 3 blocks before she realized someone was following her. Elena's training kicked in automatically. She mapped exits, identified weapons of opportunity, calculated odds. One follower, male, keeping distance. Not aggressive posture, not a threat. Not yet. She turned down an alley, waited. Marcus Hartwell stepped around the corner, hands in his coat pockets, expression unreadable. You're not as invisible as you think, he said quietly. I have security cameras. I saw you packing. Elena's chest tightened. You should let me go. Should I? Marcus moved closer. Not threatening, just present. You're leaving to protect me. Very noble, also very stupid. They called me. They know who I am. They know I'm the reason you're alive. If I leave, they'll kill me at the gala and blame it on security failures. Elena, you leaving doesn't protect me. It just makes it easier for them. His voice was calm but absolute. You think you're the weak point? You're wrong. You're the only reason I'm still alive. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. Marcus pulled his hands from his pockets. In one was his phone, showing a text thread. They contacted me too. Told me if I dropped the investigation, they'd leave me alone. Told me Catherine and Lily died because I asked too many questions 3 years ago. Told me it wasn't an accident. Elena's breath caught. Marcus, it might be true. It might be a lie designed to break me. His voice cracked slightly. But either way, I'm not stopping. Because if I stop, if I disappear, if I let fear win, then I'm not living. I'm just surviving. And you taught me the difference. I'm not brave. I'm scared all the time. I know. So am I. Marcus closed the distance between them. But you showed up anyway. In my office with 2 armed men. At the police station. Even when it meant losing your anonymity. In the guest house. Even when it meant being visible again. You've been showing up, Elena. Don't stop now. If I stay, they'll target me to get to you. Yes. They might kill me. Yes. And you're okay with that? No. Marcus's expression was raw, honest, terrified. I'm not okay with any of this, but I'd rather face it with you than survive alone. And I think, he hesitated, I think maybe you feel the same way. Elena's hands were shaking. The bag on her shoulder felt impossibly heavy. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to care about someone again. How to let someone care about me. Everyone I care about dies, Marcus. Everyone. Everyone I care about dies too. His voice was gentle. So maybe we're even. Maybe we're both so terrified of losing people that we've forgotten how to have them in the first place. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Not a storm yet, just a warning. Elena thought about Fallujah, about her unit, about the last thing her best friend had said before she died. Don't let this make you small. She'd spent 3 years making herself as small as possible. Invisible, insignificant, safe. But safety was a lie. The only truth was choice. She could run, disappear, save herself, or she could stay, fight, choose someone else for once. Elena dropped the bag. Marcus let out a breath he'd been holding. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This might be the worst decision either of us has ever made. Probably. He smiled, small and fragile and real. But at least we're making it together. They walked back to the house as the sky began to lighten. Elena's note still sat on the kitchen counter. Marcus picked it up, read it again, then tore it in half. No more running, he said. No more running, Elena agreed. But 2 days before the gala, everything went wrong. Detective Chen called at midnight. We have a problem. One of the security vendors for the gala. Background check came back dirty. Former military contractor with ties to one of the companies in Hartwell's investigation. Elena was already moving, grabbing her tablet. Which vendor? Catering staff, specifically the head chef. He has access to the entire venue, every room, every entrance. Elena, Chen's voice was tight. If they're inside our security perimeter, I don't know if we can stop this. Cancel the event. Marcus won't agree. I already asked. Elena cursed. Of course he wouldn't. Stubborn, principled, suicidal man. She found Marcus in his office, reviewing his presentation. He looked up when she entered, saw her expression, and sighed. Chen called you too. We have to cancel. We can't. Marcus, they're inside the security. They know everything. Every route, every protocol, every person we trust. This is an ambush. I know. He stood, moved around the desk. But if we cancel, they win. They keep operating. People keep dying. Catherine and Lily, his voice broke. If they died because of this, because I was getting close to exposing something, then I have to finish it. I have to make it mean something. Elena wanted to shake him, wanted to drag him out of the city, hide him somewhere safe, protect him from his own integrity. But she understood. God help her. She understood. Then we change everything, she said. New route to the venue, new security team, new protocols. We assume every plan is compromised and build from scratch. Can we do that in 2 days? We have to. They worked through the night. Chen brought in people she trusted, former military, people who'd worked with her before. Elena redesigned every security measure from the ground up. Marcus coordinated with his legal team, prepared backup copies of evidence, created redundancies. But the morning of the gala, Elena woke up with the same feeling she'd had in Fallujah. The knowing, the certainty. Something was going to go wrong. She found Marcus in the main house, adjusting his tie in front of a mirror. He looked good. Tailored tuxedo, hair perfectly styled, every inch the successful CEO. But his hands were shaking slightly. You don't have to do this, Elena said quietly. Yes, I do. He turned to face her. Elena, if something happens tonight, nothing's going to happen. If something happens, he continued, I need you to know that these past few months, you being here, you showing me what it looks like to be brave, it's been the most alive I've felt since they died. Elena's throat tightened. Marcus, I'm not saying goodbye. I'm saying thank you. He crossed to her, and for the first time since that night in his office, he touched her intentionally. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Thank you for not staying invisible. Elena leaned into the touch, just for a moment, just long enough to memorize it. If something goes wrong tonight, she said, I need you to run. Don't be a hero. Don't try to save anyone. Just run. Will you? No. I'll be the one making sure you can. Marcus smiled, sad and knowing. Then I guess we're both liars. The car arrived at 6 p.m. New driver, vetted by Chen personally. New route, designed by Elena. Every precaution they could take. But as they pulled away from the house, Elena looked back and had the terrible certainty that she'd never see it again. That one of them wasn't coming home tonight. The Grand Cascade Hotel glittered like a crystal palace, all marble and gold and old money. Elena hated it on sight. Too many exits, too many windows, too many people in formal wear that could hide weapons, intentions, violence. She'd vetted everyone she could, but instinct screamed that it wasn't enough. Marcus stepped out of the car, composed and confident. Elena followed, scanning faces, marking positions, cataloging threats. Her dress was elegant but practical, deep navy, with slits that allowed movement and concealed holsters. She'd argued against wearing it. Chen had insisted, "You need to blend in, not stand out as security." So, Elena blended. Another wealthy guest. Another invisible woman in a room full of power. Except Marcus's hand settled at the small of her back as they walked in, and she was suddenly very visible indeed. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet, waiters circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. 300 guests, all influential, all connected, all potential witnesses or accomplices or victims. Detective Chen was positioned near the main entrance, dressed in formal wear but with the unmistakable posture of law enforcement. 2 of her people were stationed at side exits. More were scattered throughout the crowd, invisible to everyone but Elena. It should have felt secure. It felt like a trap. Marcus was scheduled to present at 8 p.m. Until then, he worked the room, shaking hands, making conversation, playing the role of successful CEO. Elena stayed close, a constant shadow, until he turned to her between conversations. "You're wound tight enough to snap," he said quietly. "What's wrong?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't know." Elena scanned the room again. "It feels wrong. Your instincts?" "My instincts kept me alive in Fallujah." Marcus's expression grew serious. "Then we listened to them. What do you need?" Before she could answer, a waiter approached with a tray of champagne. Young, professionally dressed, forgettable face, except Elena never forgot faces, and she'd never seen this one in any of the background checks. Her hand moved to Marcus's arm, stopping him from taking a glass. "Who are you?" The waiter's expression flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. He dropped the tray. Glass shattered. Champagne sprayed. Everyone in the immediate vicinity turned to look at the disruption. And that's when Elena saw them. 3 more people in catering uniforms, moving through the crowd with purpose. Not toward Marcus, toward the exits, blocking them. "Chen!" Elena's voice cut through the noise. "We're compromised!" Everything happened at once. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in dim red. Screams erupted from the crowd. People pushed toward exits that were suddenly blocked by catering staff with guns drawn. Marcus grabbed Elena's hand. "What do we—" "Stay with me." She pulled him toward the stage, away from the main crowd. Fewer people, better sight lines, defensible position. Gunshots cracked through the ballroom. Not wild firing. Precision shots into the ceiling calculated to create panic without casualties. Yet, the crowd stampeded, pushing, shoving, desperate. Chen and her people were trying to control the chaos, but 300 terrified people in formal wear made for poor tactical conditions. Elena dragged Marcus behind the stage curtain, scanning for secondary exits. Found one. Service corridor. Probably leads to kitchen. "This way." They ran. Elena's heels were a liability. She kicked them off, barefoot on cold tile. Marcus stayed close, breathing hard but controlled. Behind them, footsteps, multiple people, following. The service corridor was narrow, industrial, lined with pipes and electrical panels. Elena grabbed a fire extinguisher off the wall, held it like a weapon. "Keep going," she told Marcus. "End of the hall, there should be—" A figure stepped out of a doorway ahead, blocking their path. The original waiter, no longer pretending, gun in hand, aimed at Marcus. "End of the line, Hartwell." Elena stepped between them, again, always. "You'll have to go through me." "That's the plan." The man smiled, cold, professional. "You're the complication we should have eliminated first. You can try." He did. The gun came up. Elena threw the fire extinguisher. It caught him in the chest, knocked his aim wide. The shot went high, gouged concrete from the ceiling. She was on him before he could recover. Muscle memory, training, violence she'd buried but never forgotten. Strike to the wrist, gun clattered away, elbow to the jaw, knee to the solar plexus. But he was trained too. recovered fast, caught her wrist twisted. Pain shot up her arm. Behind her, Marcus shouted her name. The man had a knife now. Where it came from didn't matter, only that it was coming at her throat. Elena moved. Not fast enough. The blade caught her shoulder, sliced through fabric and skin. Hot pain bloomed. Blood followed. But pain was old. Pain was familiar. Pain didn't stop her. She drove her palm into his nose, felt cartilage crunch. He staggered back. Marcus grabbed a pipe wrench from a maintenance shelf, swung it like a baseball bat, caught the man across the temple. He went down, stayed down. Marcus and Elena stared at each other, breathing hard. Blood was spreading across her shoulder, staining the navy dress black. "You're hurt," Marcus said, moving toward her. "I'm fine. We need to—" More footsteps, coming from both directions now. They were surrounded. Marcus grabbed her hand. "The kitchen. We can barricade—" "No." Elena's mind was racing. "They're hurting us, driving us toward a kill zone. We need to go up, not out." She found a service stairwell, metal stairs leading to upper floors. They climbed, Elena's shoulders screaming with every movement, blood making the handrail slippery. Second floor, third, fourth. Behind them, footsteps on metal stairs, echoing, closing. They burst through a door onto the fifth floor. Hotel rooms, long carpeted hallway, emergency exit signs glowing red. Elena chose a door at random, kicked it open. Empty room, made bed, neutral hotel decor. "Bathroom," she gasped. "Help me with the furniture." Together, they dragged the dresser across the door. Mattress wedged against it. Desk chair. Everything they could move. It wouldn't hold long, but it might hold long enough. Elena collapsed against the wall, hand pressed to her shoulder. The bleeding wasn't stopping. Not good. Marcus crouched beside her, pulling off his jacket to press against the wound. "We need to call Chen." No signal. Elena had already checked. "They're jamming. Professional." "So what do we do?" Elena met his eyes. Saw fear there, but also trust. Absolute trust. "We wait for them to breach. I take out as many as I can. You go through the window. There's a fire escape. I saw it when we came in. You run." "Not a chance." "Marcus?" "No." His voice was absolute. "I'm not leaving you. Not after everything. Not now. You don't know how to fight. Then teach me fast." Despite everything, the blood, the pain, the certainty that they were about to die, Elena laughed. Short, sharp, slightly hysterical. "You're insane. Learned from the best." Marcus pressed harder on her shoulder, staunching blood. "Elena, if we're going to die, I'd rather do it together than live knowing I abandoned you." Something in her chest cracked open. The last wall. The final defense. "I don't want to die," she whispered. "Neither do I. So let's not." Marcus looked around the room, calculating. "You're the soldier. Tell me what we have to work with." Elena's mind shifted. Stopped thinking about dying. Started thinking about surviving. Lamp, blunt weapon, shower rod, metal, could be used as staff, cleaning supplies under the sink, chemicals can be improvised weapons. The bed sheets. She was thinking out loud now, planning. "We can make it difficult. Not impossible, but difficult." Marcus was already moving, gathering items, following her instructions, trusting her completely. They had maybe 5 minutes before the breach. They used every second. When the door finally exploded inward, controlled detonation, professional entry, they were ready. Not enough, but ready. 2 men came through first. Elena took the first one down with the lamp, heavy ceramic base against his temple. Marcus surprised the second with the shower rod, caught him across the knees. A third man entered, saw his partners down, raised his gun. Elena dove. Too slow. She knew she was too slow. The shot never came. Detective Chen appeared in the doorway, weapon drawn. "Police! Drop it!" The man hesitated, just for a second. Chen didn't. Her shot was clean, professional, neutralizing. More police flooded the hallway. The jamming cut out. Radios crackled. Order emerged from chaos. Elena sat on the hotel bed, numb with shock and blood loss. Paramedics were working on her shoulder. Marcus sat beside her, still holding her other hand, refusing to let go even when the EMTs asked him to move. Chen approached, holstering her weapon. "We got them all. 7 attackers, all in custody or down." The gala guests are shaken but unharmed. She looked at Marcus. Your presentation is going to have to wait. I don't care about the presentation. Marcus's voice was rough. Is she going to be okay? Shoulder wound, clean cut. No major arteries. She'll need stitches, but she'll survive. The paramedic looked at Elena with something like respect. Military training? Army Rangers, Chen answered for her. Silver Star recipient, and currently the only reason that banker is still alive. Elena closed her eyes, exhausted, hurting, alive. Marcus's hand tightened on hers. Elena, she opened her eyes. You saved my life. Again. You stayed. Didn't run. That was stupid. Learned from the best, he repeated. Then, quieter. I meant what I said. I'd rather face death with you than life without you. Something shifted, the last piece falling into place. I can't do normal, Elena said. I have nightmares. I panic. I'm difficult and broken, and so am I. We'll be broken together. Marcus brushed blood-matted hair from her face. Elena Reyes, I am formally asking you to stop being my head of security. Her heart stuttered. What? I'm asking you to be something else instead. Partner, family, home. His eyes were steady, certain, full of something that looked dangerously like love. I'm asking you to stop protecting me from a distance and start letting me protect you too. Tears burned Elena's eyes. That's a terrible tactical decision. Probably. But I'm making it anyway. The paramedics were packing up. Chen was giving orders. The hotel was slowly returning to controlled chaos, and Elena realized something. She'd spent 3 years trying to disappear, trying to be small, trying to survive without living. But Marcus had seen her, truly seen her, and hadn't looked away. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay, I'll let you protect me. If you let me protect you. She squeezed his hand. Equal partnership. No more running. Marcus smiled. Real, unguarded, beautiful. Deal. 6 months later, Elena stood in the community center, watching veterans file in for the support group meeting. The Hartwell Foundation for Veteran Services had launched 3 months ago, funded by Marcus, designed by Elena, supported by Detective Chen and dozens of volunteers. They provided counseling, job placement, housing assistance, everything Elena had needed 3 years ago and hadn't known how to ask for. Marcus appeared beside her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Their routine now, had been for months. Good turnout, he said. Better than last week. Elena accepted the coffee. There's a woman who just got out. Army, combat medic, struggling with civilian life. I thought I could talk to her. You're good at this, helping people. I'm good at understanding what they're going through. Elena turned to look at him, because someone understood me first. They still lived at the estate. Elena had moved from the guest house to the main house 3 months ago, slow integration that felt right. The photos of Catherine and Lily had places of honor throughout the home now. Elena had added some of her own, pictures of her unit, of her parents, of the life she'd tried to forget. Both of their pasts existed in that house, both of their futures too. Marcus's investigation had toppled the money laundering network. Arrests had been made, justice served. He'd testified, faced threats, stood firm. Elena had been beside him through all of it. Partnership, like they'd promised. The evening meeting ended. Elena talked with the veteran, shared coffee, shared stories, shared the hard-won knowledge that survival wasn't the same as healing, but that healing was possible with help. When they left, Marcus was waiting by the car. He opened the door for her, gesture that had become tradition. But before she got in, he said, I have something to show you. He pulled out a small box. Not ring-sized, something else. Inside was a key. What's this? The foundation is expanding. We're opening a residential facility. Place where veterans can stay while they're transitioning, getting back on their feet, safe, supported, home. Marcus looked at her. I want you to run it. Not as head of security, as director. You'd be helping people like you, people who need someone who understands. Elena stared at the key, saw her future in it, purpose, meaning, a way to turn survival into something that mattered. I don't have credentials. I'm not a counselor or... You have the only credential that matters. You've lived it, and you've made it through to the other side. His hand covered hers. Elena, you spent 3 years invisible. Now you have a chance to help others become visible too. She thought about the woman she'd been that night in his office. Invisible, alone, broken, and the woman she was now, seen, supported, healing. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll do it." Marcus smiled, drew her close, kissed her forehead. "Thank you." They got in the car. Marcus drove through the city, back toward the house that had become theirs, not just his. Elena looked out the window, watching lights blur past, and thought about second chances, about choosing to be visible, about letting someone see all the broken pieces and love you anyway. "Marcus," she said quietly. "Yeah? I'm glad I chose the door that night. I'm glad I didn't run." He reached over, took her hand, laced their fingers together. "So am I. Best decision either of us ever made." They drove home together. Two survivors who'd chosen to stop surviving and start living. Two broken people who'd made themselves whole by accepting that wholeness wasn't required for love. Just presence, just choice, just the courage to be seen. And Elena Reyes, former soldier, former janitor, former ghost, was finally truly visible. And for the first time in years, she didn't want to disappear. She wanted to stay. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones wearing uniforms or carrying credentials. Sometimes they're the ones we've walked past 100 times without seeing. The janitor, the stranger, the person society has trained us to overlook. Elena Reyes spent 3 years trying to disappear because she believed surviving made her broken. Marcus Hartwell spent 4 years burying himself in work because he believed living without his family made him hollow. Both of them were wrong. They weren't broken. They were human. And being human means carrying scars, fighting through darkness, and having the courage to let someone hold your hand while you do it. Their story isn't about a hero saving a billionaire. It's about two people choosing to save each other. About recognizing that the person emptying your trash might be the warrior you need. About understanding that love isn't finding someone perfect. It's finding someone whose brokenness fits with yours in a way that makes you both stronger. If this story moved you, if you believe that everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are, not just what they do, hit that like button and subscribe to Soul Thread Stories. We share these journeys because every person has a story. Every invisible life matters. Every second chance is worth taking. And if you're someone who feels invisible today, remember, you're not. Someone sees you. Someone needs what only you can give. Sometimes you just have to choose the door instead of the elevator. Choose to be visible instead of safe. Choose to save someone, even if it means revealing yourself. Thank you for being part of our Soul Thread Stories family. Until next time, keep believing in second chances.